Hi, welcome back. So we are continuing on here in Unit A, talking about the highlights of Unit A. I try not to let the videos go past 15 minutes because, too much of a good thing. So you'll see a series of these, but we're going to be moving through them successfully. So now we're going to be moving into talking a little bit, now that we understand what a team is, and how a team is different than a group. We're going to talk about how do we empower those teams? How do we really get the best stuff out of those teams? And what we mean by empowering them is to enable them to think, behave, and act and make decisions with independence. If we have to babysit the team the whole time, it doesn't flourish the way it could when left to really develop on its own. So how do we do that? And there's a couple of steps and things that we can do that will help us to empower a team. One is to clarify the purpose and the expectations. So again, we're here talking about the goal. What is the goal? What is the purpose? Why are we here? And what is the expectation? We're going to be meeting weekly. We're going to need to dedicate this many hours to it. You need to be available on Saturdays, whatever that looks like. The second thing is you need to make sure that the decision makers have the support of the upper management. So sometimes these teams don't have managers on them, or may have a manager from one department and not another department. So if you're going to be taking an employee out of some other department for so many hours, or taking some of their work time on a project, you need to make sure that those managers are invested, know what's going on, and in support of what's happening for that team, so that that employee is not pulled in two different directions. The third thing you need to do is to communicate with the managers, and this builds trust. And the teams, it allows them to be more willing to work with teams. So what way are you going to communicate back to the managers what your team is doing? Do you check in with them weekly? Do you send them the notes, meeting notes? Do you send them emails? Do you invite them to come? What is it that I'm going to be doing to share with the management team so they know that we are working on the project and not just having tea and toast? The fourth thing we're going to do is identify roadblocks and barriers. From the beginning, what would be the obstacles to us getting to the end? And is there something we can do about those early on to offset it? And finally, to ask for authorization or give the team power. So if they need to purchase things or use certain rooms or have certain accesses, you want to maybe use equipment because it's divergent, whatever that is, you need to get those permissions up front so that you know what tools you have to work with when you put that team together. Another thing that's really important in teams, it really is to find a way to reward great team effort. When people are putting that effort in, they're putting that time in, we need to acknowledge the things that they're doing and let them know that that is valuable and it's appreciated. So you want to promote team talk. Talk up the team. Talk about up their accomplishments. When somebody added something, when somebody did something, don't tuck it in the folder. Say, Alice brought this great idea forward, and we've got some new ideas here. We got this other thing we're generating. So be willing to really talk up the other team members, make it cohesive, let everybody's contributions be known. You also want to review the evaluation of their team efforts into their personal success. So if people are spending a tremendous amount of work time in this team, how do we get that information back to their managers? So when that team concludes, do we find a way to get the information back to their managers that Sally spent 30 hours on this project and did a really good job in what she did? So we want that time to be valuable so they don't feel like it's just taking away from their duties, but part of their duties in the workplace. You want to encourage team members to exceed expectations and set their own goals. So when you present those goals, our goal is to increase sales by 5%, or to make these purchases, or to do this or do that. That doesn't mean that's all you can do. You have a group of really talented, special people, and so you want them to be able to say, are we in agreement with these goals? Can we make them better, or is this exactly where they need to be? But let your team be as successful as they can be. Don't hold them back. Something else that we want to do is determine the best type of recognition and give it. So whether that's a title, whether that's if they get pay raises or bonuses or acknowledgments, if they can put it on their resume, whatever will help them feel like their time in that team is not just a waste of time. So making sure they're recognized in whatever way we can recognize them for the efforts that they put forth. And everybody responds a little differently. What matters to everybody is a little differently, and also what matters to those supervisors may be a little different. You can't offer them money if there's no money to be given. But you still want to be really generous with your appreciation, even if it's just verbal compliments, even if it's just thank you guys for being here, even if it's water, whatever it is that we're doing that makes them know that you appreciate them taking time out of their day to be part of your team and bring that to success. How do you become a high-performing team? One of the things is to get the best talent. So don't just grab somebody. When you have to pick people from different departments, figure out what do I need from that department. What information do they need to share? What personal talents or skills do they need to bring forward? And try to pick the right team members. Teams can really, really thrive, but when we pick the right team members. You bring people who don't want to be there, that are subject to being there because they have to be there, you will not get the synergy you need, and you won't have the success you need. You need to participate actively in the team, so have regular meetings or regular check-ins, and every member needs to participate. Don't let somebody be a wallflower. If they're trying to be a wallflower, maybe they're just shy, they don't know everybody, you need to bring them in. You need to ask their opinion, you need to call them out loud, you need to get them on an assignment so that they can develop that cohesive part. So everybody needs to participate to be part of a team. You need to emphasize cohesiveness and build those connections. Team building activities, switching people up, changing seats around, introducing by names, whatever you need to do to make sure that that team starts to develop a sense of cohesiveness, which will drive them to success. You want to request information and give them information in advance if possible. So as information comes through, you want to set up a way that you're going to communicate with that team between meetings so that they're not sitting in a meeting all having to read together. So give them the opportunity to read and review the information that they need so they can come into that group feeling that they have what they need and that they can talk about it actively. And you need to recognize the contribution. So if Jimmy put together a report on particular information, you send out that report early so everybody can review it. You acknowledge Jimmy for the hard work he put in and the efforts, and then in the meeting again, acknowledge Jimmy and then openly talk about it. Maybe let Jimmy lead that part of that team since he developed that report. Distributed teams are a little bit different. What happens here is they're all over. They're not all in one place. You're going to see we have a project we're going to talk about in virtual worlds, how teams can come together in virtual worlds. Every team and every company will have their own policies on how they will work with distributed teams. Some like conference calls, some like WebEx, some do these virtual worlds, some will do different sorts of check-ins. I mean, there's just different ways in which groups get together. And so you have to decide what is supported by your organization and then what's supported by your teammates. How do they choose to communicate and work together the best? Some people really like texting, some people hate texting. So you want to make sure you have the right team that can communicate together because you're going to be working sometimes with people all over the world, different time zones, different areas, things like that. So some tips for that and being successful is to recognize the difficulties in communication, and identify that from the beginning, and have the players come forward to talk about the best ways to resolve them. Use appropriate technology. We don't need to send telegraphs. We have so many tools at our hands, so find the right tool for you and for that group and use it. Occasionally do face-to-face meetings or real-time meetings if possible. So even if that has to be WebEx because they're so far away, if you can do a live meeting and maybe do some, telephone meetings, in between, that's great. But sometimes it is impossible or costly. Then you can still do some sort of a WebEx or live chat or something where we can kind of hear the person, touch the person, feel more of their energy than just a stale email. So it's not always possible, but when it is, it does help to build that camaraderie. And then to set and attend to regular activities. So what is your agenda? Setting the agenda, making sure people know what it is, and try to keep a regular schedule to the best of your ability so people can plan for Tuesday afternoons or whatever that is, so that it's not difficult for people to gather each week to find out when they're free. We're all really busy people. So if you leave it to last minute, it will be very difficult to organize that. Again, technology is your friend. If you're not familiar with it, that's okay. We just want you to keep practicing and get familiar with it, and we will have some assignments even in the course where you're going to get to play around with technology a little bit. I don't expect you to be experts in it, but I do want you to venture into those areas and start discovering new ways to connect with new people so that you have the skills to bring your team to success. So that's going to be the end of Unit A. Come on back. We're going to talk about Unit B. See you soon.